Hello, welcome everybody back to the podcast. This is Harmony, your podcast host. Today, I'm going to be talking with Sally Watson about overcoming imposter syndrome. Sally is a career coach who mentors professionals navigating a career change, reinventing themselves, or progressing their career as leaders in their field. Part of her role as a career coach and mentor is to help her clients overcome imposter syndrome. But it is not just people pivoting careers that face imposter syndrome. It can creep up at different stages of our lives, holding us back from living our most inspired life. So I have invited Sally to come and talk to us about overcoming imposter syndrome. Welcome to the podcast, Sally.
Thank you so much for having me here, Harmony. I'm super excited to do this with you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I always start my podcasts with my rapid inspiration questions. So to get us started, can you inspire us with what your superpower is?
Well, funnily enough, my superpower is identifying and helping other people to discover and identify their superpowers.
Yeah, so unlocking people's superpowers.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an ability. I always see the good in people anyway. Nice. And so often I hear people can rattle off their weaknesses, and I'm really good at even being able to flip those into their strength and into a positive, or into what their superpower is. And I've done interview coaching for many years, and it's something that I've always just done really naturally with people when I'm coaching them, is asking, they really struggle to say what their strengths are, and I'm like, well, tell me about your weaknesses, and I can reframe what they present in a positive way, and they're kind of really shocked, and they're like, oh yeah, I am good at that.
Beautiful. And what's your favorite quote or mantra at the moment?
Oh, I've got two at the moment, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I've been using these quotes with my clients lately, and one of them is, your career can only grow if you are growing. Mm-hmm. So really knowing that we have to be growing within ourselves if we expect our business or our career to be growing. So if we're ever getting stagnant, it's kind of looking internally, well, where's my next growth opportunity, or what do I need to overcome to help my career or my business grow? And the other one is, I shared this on social media recently and in one of my masterclasses, and had some feedback from people that it can definitely, stir something in them. And it's, if you don't know where you want to be in 5 years, you're already there.
Yes, I actually read that quote of yours. I think I was like, oh, I like that. That's a good one. Yeah.
So it can be a little bit confronting, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, totally.
I know exactly where I am in 5 years' time if I don't have any aspirational plan or direction or goal or where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And who or what is inspiring you at the moment?
Oh my gosh. Well, this one would have to be, I actually have two coaches myself, and it would have to be them. I'm just constantly inspired by what they're doing, the mastermind group that I'm in. So one of my coaches is Lisa Barry from Raw Leaders, and she is just absolutely on fire. And every time I have a session with her or go to a mastermind session, my mind is blown. And my other coach, Hayley Latcham from The Embodied Woman, continually inspires me. The work that she does within her groups and the instant shifts that she makes with women and building their confidence. It's totally inspiring. So that's what comes to mind for me.
Oh, brilliant. So I would love to hear more about what you do and how you got into career coaching.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I was one of them people that never had any idea what I wanted to be when I grow up. Well, I don't say never, because, as I think back to me in like kindergarten, or, when I was 5, and I did know, I wanted to be a hairdresser. And then it started like disappearing. I personally found a lot of pressure to have this idea of what you want to be when you grow up. And I now even notice that as I've got 2 young children, that we start asking them from preschool and from starting school, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there's all this pressure that you have to have the answer. So I started just saying, I don't know, as I then went on through school, and then I would just stay stuck in this, I don't know. So then I just sort of, my career, I just fell into my career, and I got into recruitment and worked in that space for 10 years, which I loved and had some really great experiences, and it did really suit my skill set and my strengths, which was awesome. And then after having my second daughter, when she was about 8 months old, I went back to work and was just traveling into the city and leaving home at like 7 a.m. and dropping the kids at daycare to pick them up at 6 p.m. And then I was up all through the night feeding and trying to get my daughter back to sleep. And I literally, my business was born one night at 3 a.m. and I was sitting there like thinking something has to change. I was just sort of, it really hit rock bottom. I was absolutely exhausted of being a mum and working in the corporate world. And I was tired and exhausted and finding it really difficult. And I literally came across on Pinterest these 2 questions that got me starting my business. And those 2 questions were, what skills do I have to offer? And what do people come to me for? And I sat there and my baby had fallen asleep, thankfully, but I was too scared to put her in the cot that she would wake up. So I was still scrolling Pinterest, and it dawned on me, people always come to me for help with their career and, getting a job, because I'd worked in recruitment. I knew what worked in terms of resumes, and I knew I could help people with this. So literally the next day I told my friend at work I was starting my own business doing resume writing, and that's how my business journey evolved. I did that for 2 years before I then reflected, and I noticed myself starting to avoid some of the tasks that I was doing. I loved my business, and then I loved certain aspects of it and other aspects not so much. And that's when I realized I did a skills audit myself of what I truly love in my business and what tasks are not lighting me up. And that's when I realized I love the coaching element, because I'd always have like a hour consultation with my clients to learn about their careers. And I noticed intuitively I was able to help them in that consult. So I thought to myself, what if I could do more of that and less of actually writing the resume, even though I was really good at writing the resume. But I found that's what I was avoiding. And I had more of an impact in the consult. So that's when I just started to upskill myself in life coaching and combined it all together. So I combine my qualifications and training in life coaching, marry that together with my recruitment experience, and that's how I became a career coach.
Amazing. So today I really wanted to get into talking about imposter syndrome, because I see it within myself a lot of the time, but so many other women in business. So I guess I would love to start by explaining what imposter syndrome is, but also after listening to your story, would you be able to share, like, when you first thought, well, at 3 a.m. in the morning or whatever time it was you're feeding your baby, and you're like, boom, I'm going to start this business. Did you suffer from imposter syndrome yourself?
Not in that moment, because I was at rock bottom. And this is what I find with a lot of people when they do make a big change, is they've left it too late. I think the imposter syndrome would have been before then, of changing careers and doing something different. All of that self-doubt and fear would have come in and stopped me. But when I made the decision, I was at that point, like at your wit's end. I was at rock bottom. I'm like, something has to change. I cannot continue doing what I'm doing right now, because I was just burnt out and couldn't keep going the way it was going. So it wasn't in that moment, but it would have been there in the lead up. And then it's definitely comes since running my business. There's been many times where it has come up for me.
Yeah, wonderful. And just for the listeners I'm sure they all know what imposter syndrome is if they're listening to the podcast, but just in case they don't, can you just clarify, when we talk about imposter syndrome, what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So what imposter syndrome is, and it's really like feeling like you're a fraud or a fake, or feeling, not owning your success or where you've gotten to, like not believing it or thinking that it's real. Quite often, you get compliments from other people, or they perceive you to be doing really well, but you don't believe that yourself.
Yeah.
And
I know that you would most likely see it in relation to people up leveling or pivoting their careers, but do you also see it in other areas of their lives?
Absolutely. So people that come to me, they are either changing careers or wanting to progress or up level. And it can come in different forms. It really can be linked to that underlying fear of not feeling good enough at what you're doing. But I'd love to share with you, and I found, I will reference where I got this information from. It was from verywellmind.com, but these 5 types of imposter syndrome. So I thought if you're happy for me to share them, because I'm sure that when I read them, I was just like, oh, wow. And I could actually see these coming through in people I know and my clients, in terms of the different kind of, what would you call it, like the personas. So we've got, and I think you'd mentioned it as well, we've got the perfectionist, definitely, what's the word, interlaces with imposter syndrome. So the perfectionist is really when they're never satisfied with their work, or they're always that feeling that it could be done better. I've also heard the perfectionist known as actually the imperfectionist, because what they can do is actually always focus on the flaws and the imperfections. So if you do resonate with a perfectionist, I would challenge you to question, well, are you actually an imperfectionist? Yeah. So the other type of imposter syndrome is the superhero. And this is the ones that push themselves to work so hard. So this hard-working mentality, yes, I can resonate with this one as well. And to really make up for that feeling of inadequate or not feeling good enough. So they just work so super hard and push themselves extremely. So the third type is the expert. So always wanting to continue learning more, and then never satisfied with their understanding.
Like tick with
yeah.
like, uh-oh.
Then we've got the natural genius, who will set really high goals, unachievable goals, and then feel deflated for not succeeding the first time round. So I kind of hear that self-sabotage pattern coming in for the natural genius there. And then we've got the soloist, which I can resonate with this one as well, who wants to do everything themselves, and rejects assistance or doesn't ask for help. So I've overcome that one, but I definitely can see that one of not reaching out and asking for help, and that their self-worth is really stemming from their productivity of what they're getting done.
Yeah, I love that you explained all of those. It's really eye-opening, because as you're explaining, I'm like, ooh, I can resonate with most of those at some stage in my life for sure. So I think it is really easy as well to compare ourselves to everyone around us. And as you mentioned before, like from somebody looking in, it can look like that that person has it all. They're doing all the things and they've got all the confidence in the world. And they're absolutely killing it in life and business, but chances are they also suffer with imposter syndrome too. So I have heard on other podcasts and interviews, some of the most famous people like Oprah saying that they have suffered with imposter syndrome regularly throughout their careers and life. Why do you think it is so common?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I can attest to this as well in my group programs. And I think I've read like 70% of people suffer with this. And I would even challenge that more people do. So why do I think it's so common is, it's coming from a place of fear. So it's actually a fear reaction, a fear-based reaction. And fear is normal. It comes up for everyone. There are universal fears, like that feeling, that fear of not being good enough is universal. So everyone feels that at different times. And the thing is that we can't actually eliminate fear. We can't completely get rid of it because it's hardwired and inbuilt within us for good reason. So, you know, if you go back to caveman days, we need fear to say, to, you know, if there's threat to our life. And in this society, you know, obviously there isn't as big a threat to our life anymore of being chased by a bear or something. However, fear will come up for us, not just as a threat to our physical life, but also as a threat to our ego. So knowing that it's normal and fear comes up for everyone, and it can then be this fear of not being good enough and us wanting to, you know, protect our ego in that way. And I think that it's so common because of our society, is, you know, for me, I'll speak of my experience and growing up in Australia specifically, is like if you boast about your success, you're seen as stuck up or up yourself or talking yourself up. Or for those that have heard of tall poppy syndrome, it's very much a cultural thing here.
Yeah, Australians really back the underdog and the quiet achiever, and definitely, I totally agree with that. And I've had my own experience with imposter syndrome lately as well. Like, I mean, every time I launch a program or a product or something like that, it always sort of creeps in because you have to go and sell the product, and then you're hoping it's like as amazing as you feel it is and everything. But I also recently I just sat my end of year exams for my master's degree. I'm doing a master's in applied science for acupuncture. And last semester I finished with high distinctions, and I've had consistent high distinctions all of this semester. And then I sat the final exam, and halfway through, or just over halfway through, it timed out. Wasn't checking the timer, and it just timed out. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even get to finish the exam. And then I was like devastated, and I was, oh my God, you're so stupid. And all of these thoughts just flooded my mind immediately. It was like, why are you even doing this anyway? Like, you know, you can't do this and you're so stupid. And my mind just completely forgot that every single result I've got prior to that moment was a high distinction. But in this time, I just felt like the biggest failure. And I just had like that imposter syndrome just was rearing its head until I could sort of pull the reins back and say, oh, well, what can I learn from this? A, check the timer on the exams next time, but B, what did I do well, and try to reframe all that. But I did notice for sure that a lot of limiting core beliefs definitely just popped up for me. And, you know, you're not worthy, you're not smart enough, all of those kind of core beliefs that I've dealt with in the past. Do you see this happen with your clients when they're suffering imposter syndrome? Do you see the correlation with those deep core beliefs? And if so, is there a common theme or a common belief you see come up in your line of work?
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for sharing your experience, Harmony. I just want to acknowledge you for that. And congratulations on your great results and achievements. Like, all of those HDs is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And can I ask the end result? Like, how did you end up go, even though that one timed out?
Yeah, so literally only sat that exam on Monday. It's now Friday, so it was this week. We don't get our final marks until December. I did, because I freaked out about it. I worked out that even if I was to get 0% in the exam, that, you know, I'd be fine, like passing the subject. But it was still like a massive knockdown, you know, going from, that's why I was laughing when you were explaining the types of imposter syndromes. And I was like, the one that always is like studying, and also the superhero and a bit of perfectionism there. I'm like, oh, bam, they've all hit me this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great awareness that you do have, that they're coming up. Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yes.
No, an easy one. When you do get that result, you know that you're going to pass that anyway. So how do you plan to celebrate?
how do I plan to well, first of all, at first I didn't know that was going to be my result. So obviously after, I was like, holy shit, let me calculate where I'm at and if I'm actually, and then I was like, oh, phew. So at first, to be completely honest, I didn't feel worthy of celebration. Like, I was just like, shut that down, that shit. I'm going to get straight into my work and business and try to work. Like, I did the whole distraction type thing. And then when I told my husband, and he's like, but you've done so well and congratulations, you've finished for the year and it's amazing. You should go and treat yourself to something. Like, he was at work and I was like, hell no, am I treating myself to something? Like, I feel like a massive failure. I don't deserve that. So that was actually my immediate response. And it took me, a little while until I could sort of just breathe through it and reframe it. Like, I went back to my toolkit of what I know to do and what I would tell clients and try to reframe it and look what I've learned from it and all of those things. And now we will go and celebrate with a nice dinner or something with the family, just to be like, end of year. But even my husband was saying, you should share this experience with the kids too, because it's a really great experience of expectations and of learning from it, and not everything you do, you may perceive it as a failure, but it's not. You've got to recognize all of the past effort you put in, and talk about that, as well as talk about the failures or perceived failures, because that's important learning. So it was a good family for the whole lesson.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad you've got such a wonderful, supportive husband to point that out to you, because at the end of the day, you finished your exams, and that is so worthy of celebrating. And this is what we don't do enough of. And that's one of which we'll get to, those key strategies of overcoming imposter syndrome, of acknowledging yourself and celebrating yourself, and truly owning that.
Thank you, appreciate that.
And I deviated from your question, so I'll circle back to that one. But I just thought, well, the perfect opportunity of what you've experienced to really highlight that strategy. Core beliefs, 100%. Like, this is where it stems from. Imposter syndrome, I believe, is that core belief that people have developed somewhere along the line, and whatever that belief is for them, or that limitation that they've put on themselves, is normally linked to them not feeling worthy. So I'm sure you're aware that we have those imprint years of 0 to 7 where all of our core beliefs are stemmed from, and we're still walking around. A lot of people are still walking around as full-grown adults with their 7-year-old belief systems in place.
Definitely. And I think, like we've mentioned, it's a common phenomena, this imposter syndrome. So, and I'm sure that anyone who is listening to this podcast, they're obviously interested, maybe just to listen to something, but I'm sure it's because it has resonated with them, that they have suffered or are suffering with, or perceived to be, doing some grand big things in the future where this may pop up. So are you able to give us some strategies to overcome imposter syndrome?
100%. And I've got like 5 strategies listed. Awesome. So, but first of all, before I go into those strategies, well, this is kind of one as well, is having that awareness. So really bring into your awareness, is this resonating with you? And if the term imposter syndrome doesn't resonate with you, then don't worry about it. Like, that's just one of these labels that it's been given. And some people, like to have that label to feel like that it's normalized and they're not alone. But knowing that, becoming aware of if that fear of, not being good enough or not owning your success is coming up. So look for that awareness, and then really acknowledge it, like acknowledge and accept that, this is coming up for me. And then it comes to taking action around that. And that's where I've got 5 different strategies that you can take action. So, I wanted to give your audience some strategies that they can self-manage and do themselves. So the first one that I would suggest is gathering some evidence. And I would challenge you to find 10 things and write them down, create a list of your evidence of why you are good at what you do.
Like that.
Yeah. And sit there and reflect and give yourself 10 minutes, 20 minutes to sit there and be like, well, why am I good at what I do? And if you can get to 5, keep pushing yourself and get to that 10. The 10 might come easily, or you might need to keep pushing, and then keep looking. Don't give up until you get to that 10. And I would say even go further and get to 20 or 30 or whatever it is for you, and find that evidence for yourself, and keep a bank, an evidence bank. And, you know, if it's business owners, it might be testimonials, could be a good example. Or, you know, if you're in professional work, it could be when someone's complimented you, or you've received a nice email of thanks, or, you know, you've obviously got different results or that you may have achieved, but start creating that evidence list for yourself. So that's the first one. The other one is discover your superpower and strengths. So once you've got that list of evidence, like, that's going to be a great starting point to really figure out what is your superpower, what are your strengths, what is your natural genius zone, what lights you up. And this is you know, in my self-discovery program, I give people lots of worksheets and tools to be able to bring this to light for them. Some people it comes really easily to. They know themselves really well. They know what lights them up. They know what they're good at. And then others, it's gotten lost along the way. So it's bringing that to the surface and really knowing what your genius zone is, and then owning it. So number 3 strategy is celebrate your wins.
Like that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Even all the small wins along the way. It doesn't need to be a grand, big win, but it's very easy to overlook those small wins, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And I've started doing this myself, like some little silly things. Like, I yesterday had an amazing coaching session with a client, and really served him and witnessed an amazing breakthrough. And once the call was finished, I sat there and literally just went, yes.
Yay.
Like, you know, no one knows I did that. Now everyone does, because I've just told you all. But just being like, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast, but like, fuck yeah, that was awesome. I'm so proud of myself. And it's to myself, no one knows. And it's just acknowledging myself in the moment that was awesome. I've just truly helped someone. Giving yourself that pat on the back.
Absolutely. That's a really good feeling. I know when I have some really great calls, or in my programs, or just with clients in general, and I've got space in the day or at the end of the day, and I take my dogs for a walk, and I'll be, you know, even when I'm feeling overwhelmed, actually, just to remind myself, I'm like, take my dogs for a walk, and I start telling myself, you're doing well, you're on track, you're where you're meant to be, you're doing awesome. Just that sort of self-appreciation, because you can't expect everybody else to appreciate you if you're not appreciating yourself, and that's not how you're showing up in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, listening to that self-talk and changing it. And also, this wasn't one, but I'm just adding it in, like, when people do compliment you, accepting that. A simple thank you. Like, this one's huge for me, because people would compliment me and I'd be like, yeah, but I just got lucky. Or, yeah, I did really well, but I had help. It wasn't all me. Or, yeah, but insert excuse here. So I'm really calling myself out on that. And when someone compliments me, it's just, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I've worked on that one. Yeah, that's come up before, for sure.
And I'm totally aware of, like, oh my God, it's there, and I want to say more. I want to minimize and I want to justify. And I'm just saying in my head, stop, no, accept, like, receive the compliment. So another one of my strategies or tips, and you've already touched on this, is look for the lessons. You know, the principle of there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So it's not that you've failed. And with your example of your exam, it's not that you've failed. Even if you did fail, it's not failure. Look for the lesson and look for the feedback, look for the growth opportunity.
Absolutely.
And the last one was reach out. Like, reach out, talk to somebody, get coached, or whatever type of support channel you tap into. There's so many people that can help you. So many people that if it is a case of needing to look at those core beliefs and and where this is stemmed from and what's triggering you to bust that. It can be busted. Whilst I said we can't eliminate fear, we can't eliminate fear altogether, but we can overcome it for certain areas of our lives. And yeah, it's going to pop up in another shape or form. But if it's around imposter syndrome, you can overcome that. And we can change and bust that belief and that fear linked to that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, get help, get coached. Know that you're not alone and you don't have to do it on your own. But there are strategies that you can do to self-manage, and that's what, you know, any good coach is going to help you with, is being able to self-manage. So I hope that was helpful.
So helpful. I love the conversation. Thank you so much. And you brought so much insight for everyone listening, for myself on imposter syndrome. So yeah, really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your wisdom with us today. Where can everybody find you?
So yeah, the usuals: Facebook, Instagram, and I am on LinkedIn quite a bit as well. So across those 3 platforms is Sally Watson Career Coach, or my website is simply sallywatson.com.au.
Wonderful. And I'll put the link to your website in the show notes as well, so people can click straight over.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And namaste, everybody.
Namaste. Bye.